I actually think that engineers in 5 years are going to be either just not paid at all or highly paid.
Yes.
The thing about bugs is that as soon as you know exactly why, how, when, and what caused it, it's very easy to tell you, well, change that line of code to this. I love when you give them a task, they sit down, they look at their laptop, and they just think for like 10, 15 minutes, and then they get to it. They had a thought process for that. As soon as you tell them, hey, you can use cursor, any critical thinking just goes to the floor. They don't care about it. You don't want to be playing ping pong with wall. Especially you don't want to be playing ping pong with like the wall is just telling you you're right all the time. So I still believe that there won't be a single one-person company. You need someone next to you kind of like debating you and just like driving that forward. If anyone is listening to this and they want to be a founder, just get rid of vanity.
What does foam do? What are you guys, why does foam exist?
Foam exists to fix production errors.
Okay.
That's that's the thing we sell.
Yeah.
And I think the world shouldn't look like an engineer prompting a chatbot with a bunch of logs, with a stack trace, with a bunch of like index, like, give me this file, and then, I'll find the solution eventually, the root cause of the bug. I think the world should look like something breaks in production, foam talks to you, tells you the root cause and the solution. You're done.
Okay.
So it should feel, the reason we're built, this is the way we're building it, is it should feel to the end user as zero shot. It's obviously not zero shot for us. We're doing a lot of the work there.
Of course.
But I think that something like foam, and it's not all products that should be experienced like this, but I have a very firm opinion on foam being experienced as just like zero shot from the end user. And so there's 3 principles that we built with. The first one is we are every day relentlessly going for 100% correctness. It's an approximation. I get it.
Okay.
But we take, like when we talk to you, we take very seriously being right. The second one is to do so in minutes. So if I give you a fix and production is broken right now, you're not going to care about the fix in an hour. You care about it right now because your customers are happy. You're losing money.
Because it's in production. That's the thing.
It's in production.
Yeah.
That's also very intentional, by the way. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
A bit. But and the third one is, so it's in minutes. And the third one is going back to the thing that I said, no end user prompting. Nobody's allowed to prompt foam.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that is because it's like, imagine, what would you need to prompt foam? Maybe you got it wrong and it needs a log. Or you got it wrong and it needs a prompt to continue.
Yeah.
If you have to do that for foam, then what the heck is foam for? Like, what am I offering to you?
Yeah, like you're already, if you need to create an interface for people to fix things with foam, then they might as well just fix them themselves, basically.
Or use Claude or Cursor.
Yeah.
Right? And so the interesting thing about production is that to fix an error in production, you need production environment data. And that's the thing that foam is chasing.
Okay.
I also have a lot of thoughts on integrations and like how people are just like integrated with left and right everything they can possibly do, which for a lot of companies, it might make sense. For a lot of startups, it might make sense, but not for foam.
So let's talk about the use case, right? So for example, I mean, I've been an engineer at a team and we don't have an on-call rotation yet.
Yeah.
Because we're a small team. But starting at the very least 10 people, you're going to have our on-call rotation. You have something like a pager duty that just like pings people when there's some downtime or something. Does foam start the moment that someone gets a ping from pager duty? Or are you guys before that? Or how is the access pattern? What does
Absolutely.
look like?
Yeah. So you'd be surprised, actually, startups, they may not have on-call.
Yeah.
But when you push something to your production, it's a mini on-call right there.
Oh, yeah. Right? It's implicit on-call. Everyone is on.
Everybody's on call at a startup. As a surprise to me, came to like, actually, we're very also useful to startups. Now, to answer the question of pager duty, we don't integrate with pager duty. We're always listening to production exceptions. So as soon as something breaks, the first instance of that, we talk to you. We're like, hey, we notice a new stack trace, an exception.
Yeah.
Here's the root cause. Here's the solution. This is why you should care. A very requested feature, by the way, was Perla. When when foam communicates with me, there's a lot of production errors out there. Why is it I should care about this one and not that one, or how should I prioritize?
Yeah.
So we added the should you care, and that one gives you a business impact. So for example, if your checkout is broken and you're a e-commerce company, you're really gonna care about that. But it's the favicon is not loading. it falls down the triage priority.
Well, yeah, if your favicon is broken, then it's not a fatal. It's not fatal to business operations.
And observability tools don't know that, because observability tools, like, they're just getting the count.
Yeah, of course.
So if everybody's refreshing the favicon, it's going to be 1 million counts. And so what we've seen is that Sentry data, all of them, they will prioritize that bug very high up because of the count.
This is frequency. It's not. There's nothing semantic. There's nothing. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So you don't need. I mean, I think for you guys, it makes total sense that the access pattern is. I mean, even before a PagerDuty, right? Like, if you think about it,
correct.
If you can be more reactive to the actual things that are happening in production, as opposed to, oh, I get a PagerDuty.
Sure.
Let me open Foam and figure it out. Like, it's just a little bit before. Is there an element of, so let's say that Foam is monitoring production. There's an error. You have I'm assuming that you have an interface where you explain to the engineer, what is going on? Why does it matter? Which I think is super, super cool. Cause I mean, that
they requested that. We didn't come up with it. They were like, we need this.
I mean, at the very least, it's the example of like a favicon versus like a checkout, which is actual money lost. Makes total sense.
Yeah.
What happens next? Does the engineer is there an element of self-correctedness, or do you not want to get into the self-correcting aspect of things? And do you rather the engineer take lead, or what do you think?
What do you mean by self-correcting? Like, is it that Foam messaged you and the root cause is wrong, or the solution is wrong? Or is it that maybe the end user wants to customize the solution?
I actually, in my mind, I was going one step further, and I was saying, like, is there an element where Foam is creating a PR with the solution?
Yeah. So we actually started there.
Okay.
And what we realized is getting the root cause correct is really hard.
Yeah.
And that precedes any pull request. It even precedes the solution.
Yeah.
The thing about bugs is that as soon as you know exactly why, how, when, and what caused it, it's very easy to tell you, well, change that line of code to this, right? And so the difficulty on building Foam is the root cause. That's where the engineer on our side comes. And in the pull request creation, that's been completely deprioritized at Foam. Why? Is because the way I think about it is people are going to end up using Foam as like cursor. They're going to integrate with Foam, and then the result that Foam gives them is going to be like the prompt to then create the pull request. And then they can decide how they want to customize the pull request. However, I wouldn't be surprised if we go back to it as well. But it's just not, no single customer has told me, I really care about, actually there's one, but nobody else has said that. Like, what they want to save is the hours and hours of root cause investigation, and like everything's on fire.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think that a lot of AI tools, and we can talk a little bit more about this. I feel like a lot of engineering AI tools and DevOps and dev tools are trying to be too magical, right? And instinctively, I made that mistake 2 minutes ago when I said, oh, I imagine Foam filing a PR for me with perfect code.
Yeah.
But the code is the least of my concerns, right? Like, that's actually the easiest part. The hardest part is,
correct.
Oh, this is like, why is this happening? It's knowledge transfer in a team of 10 plus people where the person on call may not know
correct.
This part of the code.
Yeah.
And so I think you guys are focusing on the why, which is actually much, much harder than like, what is the actual solution?
Yeah. It precedes it, by the way. You cannot get a pull request. I can give you the most flawless pull request that has nothing to do with the actual fix, and it will be useless to you.
Got it. Do you see, I find it really interesting that you mentioned you can take the output from Foam in this thought exercise and put it into Cursor or whatever you're using.
Yeah.
Is that how you see the access pattern being used today? Or do you see it more manual and more just plain like?
From my conversation with customers, we meet with them every week, by the way. Someone I talk to every week. And so the way they're doing about it is they read it and they understand it and they just go execute it on Cursor themselves.
Okay.
Or maybe not Cursor, like whatever it is that they're using.
Yeah.
The way I'm thinking is going to happen is they're like, these tools are going to integrate with Foam. So that Foam, like you can just pull that context right away. Instead of the engineer kind of like having to work, like reading Foam and then translating that into Cursor.
Which is not that much work, right? Like you could just copy paste.
Today is just that.
Yeah.
Right? It's very simple. It's very simple. Foam is a very simple product. Zero learning curve.
That's great. I wonder if there's almost this like, oh, we want it to be perfect, and therefore it should have a perfect integration with Cursor. But like when you actually talk to an engineer that is using foam, they may be like, why? If I can just copy paste. It's like the famous, I think that we go back to the access pattern problem that I was mentioning before, where like, what if foam could file a PR with like all the code necessary to make the change? Why do that if like that's actually the least of your concerns? The biggest problem is understanding the why, right?
Even a step before even like the why, right? On our side, getting the production environment data. Today, if something breaks, you have to go to 2-3 different tools and go figure out that log maps to that exception.
Yes.
We do that for you. And that is a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Just going from there, right? Like imagine people say like, yeah, I could use Cloud. Yeah, sure. Go fetch the log in Datadog and then go get the exception from Sentry, which might be useless, by the way. It could be completely empty. We've seen them. And then feed it into Claude and then get it wrong and then continue doing that and feed it files, etc. An hour or two later, maybe you'll get it, right? Or you could just use foam and zero shot it.
I'm really curious about, it seems like you guys made a very conscious design decision for it to be 100% correct, or at least to have that as a North Star.
Yeah.
And what I find it really interesting is the zero shot, because you've brought it up a couple times.
Yeah.
Why is that, right? Because you could decide to not zero shot at all and create some level of interaction with users so that they get to self-serve. So I'm just really, really curious if it was user feedback or is it a design philosophy or both?
I think it's a philosophy.
Okay.
For sure it's a philosophy. And so, you walk into building a startup at a product, you walk in with so many assumptions. The assumption I had was the pull request is to be flawless and unit tests and everything. And then to talk to customers, like, I actually don't care. What I care about is the root cause. And so we learn from that.
Yeah.
And then as far as that zero shot, it should feel like that to you.
Yes.
I mean, look, imagine I have 2 products that I'm selling. One is a product that as soon as production breaks, it tells you the root cause solution and is correct.
Yes.
Right. Or there's another product that has a way to integrate with it, like a chatbot or something, and then it tells you like, let's get started. Paste this log. Like, which one are you going to want?
Yeah.
I want this one, right? And so I think the future should look like that one. And so I think a lot of, and it's maybe fair, other startups could be, maybe they're right, but they're starting with like the user interaction and then growing from there. But I want to like just grow from like, no user involved. We're going to do all the work for you. It's a little harder to build, but that's just like, I'm very committed to that.
I think it's harder to build because that zero shot experience for the customer isn't actually zero shot for you under the hood.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No.
And so that requires fine tuning. It requires training. It requires infrastructure.
Racks after racks.
Yeah.
It's insane, right? And so it requires a lot of prompts from our side too.
I mean, it makes sense. I think it's really, the reason I'm asking is because I think that we have a very similar philosophy. We just use it very differently.
Yeah.
But I think under the hood is the same. Well, not under the hood, towards the user, the philosophy is the same, which is BEM doesn't have a single primitive where the user can interact in the hot path in a iterative manner like a chatbot would.
That's your job.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we do have cold path. Our cold path setup is the equivalent for you guys to like, well, the user needs to give you access to the log. It needs to give you access to the data, right? Otherwise, you can't do anything. But apart from that, there isn't a feedback loop in the hot path in production where the user can say, oh, no, you should correct this. You should do that. Because otherwise, that's just creating more. The access pattern is such that you're just creating a new type of drop down, a new type of form for the user to input, and then that diminishes the value of the product. I'm curious about 100% correctness.
It's really hard.
That is really hard.
So before we move on to that, just the way design philosophy, and I think that's the way you're thinking about it too. How would you want to interact with something like the BEM value prop? You wouldn't want to interact with it. You would want the right thing right off the bat, right? And so when I was a product engineer for 6 years of a very, like every line of code that I push to production would just immediately impact millions of users. So the product that I would have wanted is that I wouldn't want to be prompting anything.
Yes.
So I'm just like, in a way, selfishly also building for Perla 2 years ago.
You were at a firm for a few years. Yeah. If something breaks in production, that's one less Peloton bike that Peloton can sell. That's money.
It's insane. Yes, I talked to a pretty big e-commerce.
Yeah.
And they were like, if our checkout button is broken, every minute, like, imagine how much money Nordstrom could lose if the checkout doesn't work.
I don't know. I mean,
millions.
And imagine it coincides with some like publicity. Like imagine it coincides with a Super Bowl campaign or something. You're losing millions in ad spend. You're losing millions in potential revenue.
And it happens. It happens.
Yeah.
So 100% correctness. So I think foam is going to be the startup. It's kind of being shaped into like product and design and research. And so the way and this is very much Sean, our CTO. It's not. I didn't come up with this, but evals actually really matter.
Oh, for sure.
So, for example, the 100% correctness, you can build anything you want.
Yeah.
And any guess you could do. And maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. And then if you run an eval, that will tell you whether the change you made pushes you to that 100% correctness or actually pushes you down. I'm actually very surprised that a lot of the assumptions when I'm building like whatever my eval fixes is I walk into it with like some assumption and I'm like, that's definitely going to make foam better. I push it makes foam worse.
Yeah.
Right. And so being able, the 100% correctness, you have to have metrics for that. And so the way we build evals, we build it with real data, real world data. Right. And every morning at 5 a.m., I get a Slack message with our performance.
That's awesome.
And the only reason we're not doing that 10 times a day is because it costs money.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
I mean,
evals are expensive. Yeah.
You're fine-tuning and you're also evaluating on top of the data that you... No, and I totally get that. I mean, I think that for the type of product that you guys are making, it needs to be accurate. There needs to be an element of correctness that is just higher than a human, probably. I mean, this is literal. I mean, because I'm also assuming that part of the value proposition here is that an engineer that is highly paid, I remember, the ballpark is always every engineer hour is at the very least $300. And so if an engineer is spending 2 to 3 hours trying to track down, that's $1,000 just for one bug, right? Yeah. And so...
And the checkout button's losing you money.
Exactly. That's another...
That's on the side of the company. Exactly.
Yeah. You're not just losing R&D, like you're losing revenue, which is crazy.
Which is crazy, right?
As we were talking about this, I had some thoughts for you. Actually, I'm very curious to get your take on this. I guess I can start with the question of why not address errors before they hit production?
Prevention.
Yeah.
You would be surprised, but CTOs and general engineering leaders cannot put a price into something that never happened.
Yeah. Except security is probably the only one where there's a theater around it.
Yeah, for sure. That's one point. Second is when you push something to production, you can review it all you want and you should, and you can write all the tests you want. You should. You don't know how you can never guess how the user is going to interact with that.
Yeah.
And the edge cases that are coming out with that. Like, it's just like, you need to have you have to be able to like see the feature for you to prevent them. And so, yeah, it's just like prevention is like, we also realize it doesn't really sell, at least not for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a good prevention would be code review. And we did some code review.
Yeah.
But we also realized that code review is very social. Like, if you code review my code, then I'll respect it. But if a bot does it, it's less. And I'm sure there's code review companies doing really well and addressing that concern. I just didn't care about addressing that. It's just not something I'm very passionate about. But yeah, prevention, people don't particularly want to pay for that. They say they do, but they don't. They'll tell you, but they actually don't. And I've tested that.
I think that's so interesting. I never thought I actually never imagined that would be your answer. Well, because I'm not selling this product, right? So like in my mind, I'm like, yeah, sure, prevention has a value. I think you bring up a really good point that production mistakes are much, much costlier. It's much easier to put an ROI number on it. As an engineering leader, I wonder if the thought is also acknowledging, coming to terms with the fact that humans make mistakes. And so no amount of tooling, regardless of whether it's AI driven or static code analysis, is going to help you achieve zero bugs in production. It's going to happen regardless, because sometimes the code can be perfect, but there's something else. There's a misconfiguration of environment variables.
There's like a misconfig in some other repo that interacts with it. Somebody forgot to set that value, and and it's impossible.
So I wonder if phone's access pattern is such that it acknowledges that humans aren't perfect and they'll never be, and no amount of prevention can actually help with the fact that you are going to hit a production bug.
This very much reminds me of the thing we were talking about earlier, vibe coding and slop coding.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. So
I think it's a great thing for our business. It's beautiful, but it's...
You talked about is it vibe?
Vibe coding, that's what, I entered, so I created Twitter 2 months ago, and I've been on it a few times, and the last time I signed it was a week ago. All I could see was vibe coding. It's what the heck is that? And so I know. And this is why you shouldn't go on Twitter.
I haven't gone on Twitter in 6 months.
Amazing. Yeah, don't. You're not missing much. And so, but when I do go, I see this things, and I'm just very confused. And then recently I heard about slop coding.
Slop coding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I told you about it, right? Somebody that is actually experienced, but just taps. They don't really care about the output of Claude. They don't really check it. They just trust it and go. And Get Clear came out with this research result in which double the pull requests are being actually rolled back because of bugs ever since AI was introduced into our workflows. Okay. And those are the ones that are rolled back, right? It breaks production, you bring it back, but it doesn't even reflect on the ones that go out and then a fix goes forward, right? It's insane what's happening.
Got it. So just to recap a little bit, vibe coding is, if I am understanding correctly, it's the idea that someone who is not technical can write code with a cursor?
I think cursor, or something.
Or something.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
And slop coding is the idea that a technical person...
I don't know if it has to be technical, but a lot of technical people slop code.
Yeah, they just kind of become lazy and just only use AI. Is that what...
I don't think it's laziness. I think it's they trust it way too much. And so I've seen it where there will be something crazy introduced in the pull request or something deleted into a pull request. Are you not verifying what the AI is telling you? Right? And so they just trust it way too much. And at the end, the AI is just not going to produce a high quality code that you and I can produce. It's just what it is.
That's fascinating. This is all fascinating to me because I feel like I've had a couple of experiences in the last few months where I've run into this. I just didn't know that it had a name.
I just found out like 2 nights ago, I heard about slop coding. So
I was at a dinner a few months back with a few investors, and it was just a little, a little circle table. And one of them was saying, "Oh, we love Cursor. I love Cursor." And he was saying, "I'm not technical. I opened Cursor, and part of their deal flow strategy as a VC is that they parse through LinkedIn profiles and they look for people that are at SBC and YC and all of these things. Yeah. And they try to add them to a CRM. So I went into Cursor and I said, allow me to build this app that scrapes through LinkedIn and adds them to a CRM. It adds a probability that they'll start a new company and all this stuff."
Yeah.
He's raving about it. He's like, "It's so cool." And I was able to build an application within 15 minutes. And it's incredible. And I wish we had come earlier to invest in the company. And I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." But immediately after he said, "Anyway, the app never worked, so we still hired someone to do it manually." And I'm like, wait, hold on a sec. I wonder if there's a cognitive dissonance where people are confusing utility with novelty, and they're like, "Whoa, it's so cool that Cursor can make you an app," but also the app doesn't quite work in a production environment. It's still cool, and the code is code, and the code compiles. but we still had to hire someone to do it manually. And I was like, wait, what is happening?
Yeah. And I think what's really tricky about AI is that people see, I love this point, by the way, what you just brought up. It's very common. People, they've seen AI, it produces an insane quantity of code.
Yeah.
But I always tell, we're hiring right now. And so I always tell engineers, look, if you were to join Foam, I don't care about thousands of lines of a pull request. All I care about is those 10 lines of code that are incredibly useful, unlock market cap to us, and improve fixes by 20%. Right? That's the code that I care about. And so people are like, I think if you haven't coded a lot, you're going to be confused about all the quantity of code. It feels like magic, but at the end, it's if you're not careful, it's garbage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, did you ever use NetBeans back in the day? So NetBeans was this crazy, I mean, it was Sun. I think it was initially Sun. Then Sun got bought by Oracle. I think it still exists in ID. I'm not sure, but they were one of the first ones to say, oh, you can just generate UIs with NetBeans. And the UI is everything you want it to. And I think they built it for engineers who don't like building UIs, which funny enough continues to be a problem. It's harder than ever to find front-end engineers. Yeah. No one wants to deal with front-end code. Yeah. But it looked actually very interesting. It looked like, it had drop downs and it had a window, and it would build it on top of Qt so that you could build a desktop app on top of it. Great. You look at the code of this and it was horrendous, unmaintainable. You can't really ship that to a production customer. And so I think it's really funny that 20 years later, we have these tools that produce code, and that code sometimes compiles. I had an interesting situation the other day where I had V0 generate a little report. And then I was like, sure, deploy. And I was like, you made a mistake.
Yeah.
This is not even building. And I'm like, you made this. And it had a little button that said, fix with V0. And I was like, oh, the code generated by V0 is going to be fixed by V0.
Yeah. Well, they should be doing that in the background for you.
That's what I wonder. It's isn't it easy for them to check if the code is buildable?
They need the AI feature shipped.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
they need it out.
That little button.
For us, it's that's the whole thing, right? We take that seriously. And so that loop that you would have done with V0, you're not going to get that with Foam. There's not going to be looping. We're going to do that for you.
Yeah.
By the way, all of what we talked about, it's great for business. The bugs are increasing. It's insane. I think it's we're it used to be 4% of pull requests being rolled back. Now it's we're about to hit 10%. And that continues to grow year over year, right? And so great for business.
Yeah.
It's very convenient for me, but repositories are looking
that's their
garbage. It's actually pretty sad. As an engineer, I always tell people you should be proud of your craftsmanship. You should be proud of the pull requests you put out, and they shouldn't be garbage. They should be good. They should be thoughtful.
I mean, it's also that most of the time that our engineering team spends, if you look at their day to day, they actually spend more time designing and architecting the features than coding them. Code is just the final step. It's the execution step of just, actually sitting down with a team, architecting things properly, creating good abstractions, creating good interfaces, modularity, and so.
What's a huge red flag that now that you're mentioning that is when people you give them a task and immediately open cursor.
They're not thinking about it.
They're not even thinking about it. It's just I love when you give them a task, they sit down, they look at their laptop, and they just think for 10, 15 minutes. And then they get to it. They had a thought process for that.
This is so interesting. Are you guys, so it seems from what you're saying with recruiting, you guys allow candidates to use Cursor?
We used to, not anymore.
Okay.
And I think it's a disservice to them to do so because they cannot resist the urge to use Cursor. Can't. The best candidate we've interviewed says, "Can you turn off Cursor, please?" They don't want to have Cursor.
Oh, interesting.
Because they want to think about the problem. And as soon as I meet someone that's great, beautiful. And so I think as soon as you tell them, hey, you can use Cursor, they just, any critical thinking just goes to the floor. They don't care about it. they think it's all good. And I tell them, I say, if you use Cursor's going to get it completely wrong on the first try. They're like, okay, yeah, I'll work through that. They get the result from Cursor and it's wrong. And the thing that I'm interviewing for is like, can you go through that and find edge cases and fix them? They go and they just say, okay, that's right. That looks right. No, it doesn't. You didn't even like read the README of the question to, carefully think about those edge cases. So if people out there are coding like this, they're going to miss even more edge cases. Just again, really good for business. But in interviewing, it's like, you should really think about this. You should really think about the problem. And if you have Cursor, great, use it, but it should be you thinking. And I know the candidates are usually going to do really poorly in the interview. As soon as they just read the question, they're like, all right, my Chitel, let's go Cursor. They just do really poorly.
That's so interesting. So I guess the question is like, is there a right way of using Cursor?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think there are flavors for it. Cursor's AI is beautiful. It's great. I use it all the time, but it shouldn't replace your problem solving skills. It shouldn't replace your critical thinking. It shouldn't replace design. It's not there yet. People say like, yeah, but AGI is years away from here. Today, I need to build foam. Like today. So can you build foam today? I don't care if you're like thinking about AGI and it's going to code it all for you. Today, what can you code for me? Right?
Yeah.
And so, there are ways. There are amazing ways to use Cursor. I think I kind of I believe I have it cracked down, and then my co-founder uses them in their own way.
Yeah.
But everybody has different flavors. But what works is when you understand that the thing you're going to get is going to be garbage.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to kind of like clean it. And so that's one way to start. Like people just output something and then clean it. For me, it's like I create something and then I just use autocomplete. And I just prefer that. And I'm just better than Cursor. And so for me, it's just like, it's even faster than just like prompting stuff.
I'm having flashbacks. So about 10 years ago, a little bit over 10 years ago. Oh, wow. Time flies by. I was the founding engineer at this company called Kite.
Okay.
Kite was the first code gen company, really.
Wow.
We built the first autocomplete experience.
Great.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Which is funny because I think that a firm's intention was to actually adopt it. Back then, there was no generally available GitHub Copilot. Mm-hmm. So they intended to adopt it as an internal tool. Mm-hmm. It's just that we were, 10 years too early to market and technology and everything. One of the things we learned is that there is, when you code and when you assist with coding, an autocomplete experience, there's a difference between workflow and content. And the best engineers, they don't want help with the substance of the code or like the actual function of the code. They need help with the workflow, like speed up workflow. And so that's, for example, I go back and forth. I'm subscribed to GitHub Copilot and I subscribe again and then I'll subscribe. But really, the thing that I enjoy most from GitHub Copilot is if I'm just writing a page with a bunch of endpoint handlers and most of them look the same and I just need a skeleton builder, great.
Yeah.
But the moment that you go into actually designing the way that these handlers should behave or the way that they call abstraction, the details, I wish you actually had a way to like tone GitHub Copilot down for the next 30 minutes and be like, can you just help me with the basic autocomplete? Mm-hmm. I guess you can turn it on and off, but I think what you're saying makes total sense. It almost seems, to me, it seems so basic that people should make a distinction between, you need critical reasoning. Humans are very good at being critical reasoning, and Cursor is just a tool. It's not a replacement for the human brain. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's the same for writing copy or like, if you look, I don't know if you've seen this on LinkedIn, but a lot of people now use bots to respond with comments to like feed posts. Yeah. And I've been getting some of these. And so
I wonder if they use AI.
Oh, absolutely. You use
Of
it.
course they use it. Yeah, it just shows.
It reads like it was written by ChatGPT. And it's the funniest thing because they're just these blobs of like these paragraphs that make no sense. And it's just a word salad. And I'm like, I wonder if we're reaching the saturation point where like people are just, they're getting lazy. Like, are we getting lazy as a society and feel like,
yes,
like at face value,
mm-hmm.
LLMs can generate things that are correct in some way and long. And I wonder if the human brain has this cognitive dissonance of being like, yeah, no, this looks fine. Yeah, on you go,
Yeah. I mean, look, if everybody else's engineer is doing this, great. You should use foam.
Yeah.
It's a great point you're touching. I think that people, there's laziness, and then there's also, it can think better than I. So let me just trust it.
And but can it?
It can't, obviously.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but people think so. Yeah. And another one is like, can I get the AI to do this thing for me? It's like, sure, you can prompt that and it will take you 3 hours to get there. Or you can just code it in like 5 minutes. And I think that being able to like distinguish, is it really making me faster? Or is it actually slowing me down? What I've noticed is that the person as an engineer needs to figure out exactly the way their style works for producing really good code. And everybody has a different style.
Yeah.
But just understanding that it's just not better than you. Vibe coding is different. Like they don't even know how to code. People that are Vibe coding, presumably they don't know how to code. But if you know how to code, yeah, you should just understand, believe that you're better than Claude, period. You are. It's just a quantity game. Your quality, it's just like nobody can replace that quality.
Yeah.
Not today, at least. We're not there.
Do you know if people are hiring vibe coders? Like how to?
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
No. I mean, I wouldn't hire them.
Is anyone doing this professionally?
I don't know anybody personally.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of I think it's like clickbait, in my opinion.
Okay. It's the that was actually going to be my next question, which is like, I saw a post on LinkedIn recently that was like, CTOs are disappearing.
God, no. No, they're not.
Okay.
Is Opal here?
He is right there. I was like, oh God, please don't leave us, Opal. No, I mean, I wonder, one of the questions that I think I sent you over email is like, is the concept of the engineer, like, what is the long-term? I mean, you guys are directly in that path of like code the functionality to production to, hey, something is broken in production. From what you're seeing with your users, with the way that you guys are building software yourselves, what does this all lead us to, let's say 5 years from now? Is it more, are certain roles within an engineering org going to disappear? Or is it more of a numbers game where I think a lot of VCs and talking heads on LinkedIn are like theorizing, when will the first $1 billion company, like single person $1 billion company be? You don't no longer need a team of engineers. You just need one architect. Like what is the outcome here?
There's a few pieces here. So that one with the 1 billion, one person, 1 billion company, I think that misses one thing. And it's like, you know how when you have a co-founder, you sit down and you're like, hear me out. And they evade you. You don't want to be playing ping pong with the wall. Especially you don't want to be playing ping pong with like the wall is just telling you you're right all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So I still believe that there won't be a single one person company. You need someone next to you, kind of like debating you and just like driving that forward. It just won't happen. From that perspective, from business, product, social. It's also social. But that's just that, right? I do obviously look. We've been mostly just two of us.
Yeah.
Sean and I, and our code base is really large. We're supporting companies.
Yeah.
And it's just the two of us. So it clearly makes us faster. But Sean and I take our job very seriously in terms of quality.
Yeah.
Which is why we got to do that, are we able to do that. The other point you touched was replacement.
Yeah.
So I actually have a very different opinion than people, and it's an opinion. I cannot tell you what I think is going to happen.
No, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually think that engineers in 5 years are going to be either just not paid at all or highly paid.
Interesting.
Right. And so a lot of people are just going to be kind of like It's going to be like a tray a bit, right over here. And then the incredible engineer that cares about quality, it's craftsmanship for them. They're going to be rare. They're already rare.
They're already rare, yeah.
And they're going to be, I think engineers are going to be paid even more.
I was actually telling the team the other day, I feel like the age where just being a software engineer was a guarantee of a 6-figure salary, and you get to live at Nima, you get to do your little gym stuff, and that's gone.
That's for sure gone. And so it's like, I think it's like, this is going to be, it sounds horrible, but if you are an engineer poser, you're not going to make the cut.
Yeah.
Like the incredible engineers, the ones that like, you know, are doing this because they love coding.
Yeah.
Those are going to continue being paid a lot. Like, and they're going to even be more rare. It's like, I think like what AI has accomplished is this is the people, I don't want to say pretending, but these are the people that are like, maybe not like, are not very passionate about coding. They're not very, it's just not their thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to, and then AI shows you, but this section of people, they're still better than Claude. And it's why, because they care about the coding, they care about, it's a talent that they have. It's an obsession that they have. And so it's very polarized. And it's also with lawyers and doctors and everything. Claude will never replace an extremely good lawyer, because an extremely good lawyer doesn't necessarily read everything. They have like people already doing that for you.
Yeah.
They think about edge cases, about the law, etc. Right? Same with engineers. So I think that what's going to happen to all of this, a lot of industries, is we're going to have incredibly disgustingly high-paid people, and then other ones that are just going to be like, like a trade, really.
Yeah.
So it's just really going to show up like who is there to be an engineer and who's there just to get the 6 figs and just write fully written code.
I think you're totally right. So you were saying that you think that the way that the industry is going is you're going to have a set of engineers that are going to be well paid, high value, and then you're going to have a set of engineers that are just going to be less valuable for the industry.
I am not even sure if that section is going to exist. Maybe it's
totally fair.
I'm really bullish on the other one. I really think that incredible engineers are going to continue being paid really high.
Because they're just very good architects, because they know how to use...
Because they have critical thinking skills.
They have critical thinking. They know how to design systems and then use AI to complete and execute, rather than Claude, make me an app. The make me an app prompt, like there's something there that triggers in my brain, like some anger response.
I hope everyone's coding like this, because then it's great. Use phone to fix it. But I mean, this is all a lie. Like whenever you see a demo that's like create a web app and then just pushes it, like creates a web app for you, it's a lie.
Well, it's
not productionized.
It goes back to the conversation that I had with this investor, where they're like, it's nifty, it's a neat trick, and it looks real. Can I actually use this day to day? No, let's just hire someone that does it manually.
Of course.
I think that makes total sense. I mean, I think that, look, at the end of the day, architects are, I mean, it's funny. I feel like architects are incredibly valuable, like high quality architects are really, really valuable to a company. Mm-hmm. And I think that something really interesting that I've seen is a lot of founders don't value, they're not as picky when recruiting. And we can talk a little bit about recruiting.
I love to learn. We're recruiting right now.
Oh, recruiting is hard. We're recruiting ourselves. Recruiting is extremely hard for us, but I think it's extremely hard for everyone.
Yeah.
Because I also think that the industry there's this weird dichotomy right now where I feel like the industry is saturated with engineers. Because for the last few years, we've been pushing STEM and STEM and STEM so much, and everyone has been thinking, I got to be a software engineer. I got to be a software engineer. I'm going to make the next Google. I'm going to make the next Facebook. Mm-hmm. And now we have a market with millions of engineers. And I think what happens with that is that you end up with a more binary distribution rather than like a more tapered one where there's just a top 10%. They're extremely good. They're expensive. They know their worth. and then there's everyone else.
Yes.
And so I feel like what you're saying is already coming true. Like it's becoming true.
Yeah.
And I think for us, we are now 6 people.
Congrats. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's taken us, we are a year and a half old. And so we've grown the team very, very consciously and very slowly.
Okay.
I'm
taking notes.
I've talked about why also, and in social media, I think we're very open about it. And it's that
awesome.
I think the industry is moving so fast that the value of what you're doing is also shifting, and the underlying primitives are shifting. And therefore, it's very important for us to be able, I think a startup today needs to be able to make 2-3 degree course corrections very quickly.
Yes.
And it's harder to do if you raise a massive round and then you hire 50 people. It is hard. It is very hard to do because I've been there. I remember in previous startups, starting 50 people, you need alignment meetings. You start talking about acronyms. You start talking about lingo. I think for us, a lot of what people thought were our competitors and other companies in the space, what happened to them is they raised too much money too quickly and they added too many employees to the roster. And now they're stuck in a position where what they're doing is already commoditized. And now they need to pivot. And pivoting a 50% company is very different from pivoting a 5% team. And so I would say any company out there that is less than 10 people, I think that is the opportunity for you to be able to do these 2-3 degree course corrections. Like you were saying, foam itself has evolved, right?
A lot.
And it's harder to steer the ship as you get heavier and heavier and more people and more teams and more people and more alignment, more investors. Investors expect.
It's a disease. I think they get lost. They get lost in the game. The thing I really enjoy about talking with you, Antonio, is that I can relate that you're a very responsible founder.
We try to be.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. And so if anyone is listening to this and they want to be a founder, just get rid of vanity.
Oh my God.
Just please get rid of it. You're not it's just not, people are your investors might tell you, I would love to get a better valuation, high valuation. That's all great and stuff, but every day you should wake up. You have to be selfless about the job. No vanity. You have to wake up as a CEO and you say, okay, what is that thing that's going to make foam amazing today or bend today, right? And that's the thing you do. And if it's something you've never done, you just do it. If it's not something that is something you enjoy to do, you still do it, right? And so I think getting money and everything, it's a disease because it takes that away from the CEO. It takes that away from the CTO. And then now you can delegate it to someone. But you don't even know if that's the way you want to go. And so you don't even pause and think. You just have people doing a bunch of stuff. Yeah. And so it's really a disease. And I've seen it with startups. They grow very quickly and they're just creating product after product, feature after feature. And they forgot about the customer because they become
a financial product.
Yeah.
For the VCs rather than a company that needs to be sustainable and grow and build a product.
And look, VC, they're great. We're I love my investors. They're amazing. But the thing that investors will do for you, it's the money and introductions. That's the two things. And the third one that I would love to get, it's just let me do my thing. Don't
get in the way.
Don't get in the way. And so far they've been great. But
I think most VCs today have, because we've been through VC cycles are about 5 years, and those at least the bigger institutions have been around for at least 15 to 20 years. So they've seen at least 4 or 5 cycles. Yeah. And so they've already realized that unless strictly necessary, they shouldn't get in the way unless it's really, really obvious. And the horror stories of VCs taking over companies and everything.
Gosh, it's just horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, you also create those scenarios. Raising vanity rounds is a sure way to get into that scenario. Yeah. But I also think that they've realized by now that they need to let people do their thing.
Mine definitely know that.
Yeah. And in ours too. I think that you just start getting pickier and pickier about who you work with. And that to me is the biggest learning from building startups for the last few years, is that I don't care about the brand. I care about the partner. And I actually think a lot of founders don't know this, that everything begins and ends with the partner that you work with. It doesn't matter if it's Sequoia. It doesn't matter if it's Andreessen. It doesn't matter if it's a upstart VC that just started. Everything begins and ends with the partner that you get. And that is the entire world that you're going to live. A lot of them will sell you that they have a team that helps founders with X, Y, and Z.
And they'll say anything that they want to write you a check.
The partner is everything. The partner, and actually it's really funny because, I mean, if you have a board and the VC joins your board, the board, that chair and the board doesn't really belong to the partner. It belongs to the VC. But there's almost an interesting scenario there where I want to work with this VC forever. I want to work with a partner, not with the firm, right? Let's go back.
Partners get replaced all the time. Before we move on from VCs, so when our seed round was preempted, I wasn't fundraising or anything like that. And I went with the house fund. The house fund's amazing, truly amazing. I'm very happy.
Awesome.
A funny story that I have is when the house fund extended me terms, I had a chat with other VCs very quickly. A few VCs showed up into the office because once they want to, once you get a term sheet, they all want to talk to you.
That's very flattering.
Yeah. They were literally, I had at least 3 VCs in the office.
That's awesome.
I knew I didn't want to work with a few of them because the questions they would ask me. One of the questions they asked me was the first question this person was, "Are you crazy?"
Oh, wow.
I was like, well, if you talk to me for 10 minutes, you would know the answer to that. Right? You would know how passionate I am about foam, and I can be a little bit crazy about foam. And I was just like, God, I'm very glad I'm having these conversations in the office with you because I do not want to work with you.
That's
never.
Good.
And so with the house fund, it was SPC2, I got to know them really well. And so it's the house fund was they talked to me for months and they just made it very easy. And so in a way, I could have gone and say no, I'm going to go for the much higher valuation. I could have definitely done that. But I definitely compromised for a better partner. And that was the house fund.
No, that makes total sense. Let's talk about recruiting. So you guys are recruiting, you're looking for engineers.
We are.
Are you finding it hard to find good engineers?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Same, by the way.
Yeah.
You're not alone.
No, I'm sure. Yeah. Hiring. So if you told me back in the day that hiring would be the hardest thing, at least at this stage, I would be like, no, it's not. It's sales. And sales is so simple now. We have a lot of clarity of thought because we've been doing a lot of the work and we know exactly what's going to be the next thing to build, etc. And we have customers already giving us feedback, etc. So, but gosh, getting engineers is really hard. And I think what I realized, there's a distribution where it literally goes like this. The people that want to work at foam or BEM, actually you're way ahead of us. But foam for sure is you're either super young, you want to join a startup, or you're a very risky person, you just want to go and learn. That's 20 to 25, 23. And then the ones that are they've made enough money, they just really want to work on something cool. They want to just they just understand that there's a technical renaissance happening right now.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And so these people have experienced so many years of seeing how the things shift. And so when they see something, they're like, that's going to change things. And so they just want to jump into that train, right? So it's just I get candidates from this side. A lot of the candidates in between are 25 to maybe 32. A lot of them are very risk averse. Makes sense. Some at that age, you're having kids, you're buying houses, etc. So I don't get a lot of those in the pipeline. It's just actually really hard. I mean, look, it makes sense, right? You want to make tons of money at another company and just whatever. Another concern that people have is getting layoff. And I'm you're more likely to get laid off at Amazon than at foam. You're not gonna,
talking about this was the thing.
You're not gonna lay off. You're not gonna do that. We're not gonna. It's just not gonna happen.
Well, okay. I mean, I think it's because until a couple of years ago, it wasn't common for Google to do layoffs. For example, I think I think Google's first publicized layoff was actually fairly recent, like 3, 4, maybe 5 years ago.
Now we just do it.
Now it's continuous, and so I feel I think people still carry that historical memory of no, if you work at a FANG, it's impossible to get laid off. Well, they're doing layoffs continuously.
They're going to continue. And I wonder, by the way, if that's a result of like, you know how I was saying, like it shows who's actually, no, I don't want to say that because layoffs may impact really great engineers, but
Oh, for sure. Yes.
But I think there's that.
You would think a larger company is able to assess the degree, the quality of an engineer, and then trim the lowest quality engineers. But
it's just not what happens. You're right.
Exactly.
It's not what happens. I actually did a layoff, and a lot of amazing people were caught, and then other people stayed. I was like,
they probably don't know how to measure quality of an engineer. They don't. I mean, I remember the famous X layoffs where they were asking them, how many lines of code have you pushed?
The least amount, the most impact, that unlock market cap. Those are the ones you want to keep, not the ones that are writing a bunch of code.
Well, I'm really thankful that you did this episode with us. I think we talked about a lot. There's a lot of meat in what we talked about. What's next for Foam? What are you excited about?
So we do production fixes.
Yeah.
And we're very opinionated on like, we're only going to be built on top of Sentry today. That's not going to be for very long.
Okay.
And we are very much against integrated with data, New Relic, etc. That should be another podcast. But the next step for us is going one step farther and saying, you know what, we're going to get even a deeper integration with the customer data, the production environment data, to get even better fixes. And that should be experienced to the customer as a two-line code change, and that's it. And the way I think about it, it's like the next direction of Foam is like, I always say this, but it's like Foam will know if that it was 72 degrees outside when the exception happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the next step. And so I'm very purposely not integrating with anyone else, because otherwise I will be an integrations company for the next 6 months. That's literally what I would be.
I totally get it. You rather, we call it being more of an ambient system. Like it just works and it's connected to the raw source of the data rather than some intermediary that is like trying to.
But that's high signal. That's the thing, right? And so that's going to be, for me, that's the differentiator between a good fix and a crap fix. And so it's like, that's what I'm excited about next. It's like integrating a little bit more with the customer. It's just going to be 2 lines of code, and we're going to know everything about the exception. We don't have to store the data. We're not the challenge about Sentry and Datadog they all have is like they get the data, they have to store it, they have to show it to you beautifully. I don't have that job. All I have is like I listen to the error, I get the logs, I get the error, whatever, etc., and then I provide you a fix. I don't have to show you any of this log in like a beautiful UI interface.
Yeah,
Foam doesn't care.
It's management by exception rather than like look at all the data. Like you almost want to keep Foam an extremely lean product, like as minimal as possible, so that it truly shines only when shit hits the fan.
That's the only thing that that's the one thing I'm extremely obsessed about. And so getting more of that production environment data, high signal data is the next step. And so I'm very excited about that.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Perla. This was awesome.
Thank you.